You.
Why don't we do introductions too, Ruth?
Yeah. Okay. So why don't you introduce yourself again since you're one and only?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm Gretchen. I'm the Vice President of Development at Cancer Support Community, which serves Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, and we are formally known as the Wellness Community. So if you're familiar with that organization, we have been in our region for 30 plus years, and we are one of 175 different medical entities that kind of are covered under the Cancer Support Community umbrella. So I can tell you a little bit more about what that allows us to do from a resource standpoint. But for the most part, all you need to know about me is I love philanthropy. I love your organization. I first met you at a Magnified Giving awards ceremony. I first heard of your foundation there and was so impressed with all the work that you do with them on a regular basis. A couple of you look familiar from that setting. And but you know, I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about our mission, not only from a funding capacity, but also just from a simple awareness of services in our own local community capacity. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Well, I'm Ruth Cleet, the trustee of the Elsa Sewell Foundation. And then Dick, why don't you go ahead?
I'm Dick Murgatroyd. I'm a member of the board.
And he's
I'm
also
Frank Hicks,
like,
member of the board.
yeah, Dick is a lifelong friend of Elsa's, co-worker. And then Frank, go ahead and,
Frank Hicks, a member of the board.
all right.
Hi, Andy Kusher, board member.
Hello, good morning. Jordan Cleet Kusher, Program Officer.
Great. Nice
So-
to meet all of you.
Frank is a lifelong member or a resident of Northern Kentucky,
Okay.
except for a long stint in the Army, West Point graduate.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Andy is my husband,
Okay.
and Jordan,
Well, Jordan, I'm waiting with bated breath to find out.
I'm frozen, so I don't know what she said. I heard my name and I heard her say my name and then I don't know what
And
she
then
said
that was
after.
it. That's what, yeah. Oh,
Andy and her are both frozen on my screen.
yeah,
they're not-
they're frozen on mine as well.
Okay. Well,
So
what did
it's
she,
either us or them.
yeah, what did she say? Did she
She
say,
didn't finish. She froze. I was waiting.
oh, you just heard Jordan also.
Yes.
My guess is the internet might have gone out, but we're still in the meeting. I'm afraid the meeting might end here in a second since she's host. Let me give them a call real quick.
Okay. Oh, they just hopped off. Maybe they'll call
Dick,
back
looks
in.
like you're the host now, Dick. So let me give him a call. Hold on.
Even a year into all of this, we're all still dealing with the same problems that we had on day one. It's such a crazy, crazy world we're living in right now. I've heard that when you're a part of your organization, it's a lifelong appointment, it seems. The seniority in your board and in your donor base, from just hearing conversations about the foundation, are the seniority in those numbers is huge. That says a lot about the organization and about the people who run it and the faith that the supporters have in it. That's pretty impressive. Well, I've been in Cincinnati all my life, so I'm proud to serve our community, and I appreciate everything that your organization does for it.
How long have you been with this organization?
So most of my career is in business development and hospitality sales, working with convention centers and larger scale events. But my daughter is a cancer survivor, and that kind of shifted my path personally. And I wanted to use my sales experience for nonprofit work, and it translates very similarly to development. So I started with Cancer Support Community years ago, transitioned out of the organization to a foundation that serves local senior resident living communities, so that if a senior who lives there outlives their financial resources. They continue to stay in their home based on the benevolent care fund that is built up. So I worked with Twin Lakes and Twin Towers here locally. I don't know if you're familiar with either one of those, but and then there's new leadership at Cancer Support Community about a year and a half ago, and they approached me asking me to come back. And it was always just kind of my mission to be a part of this organization because of the support that we offer, and then experiencing my own daughter's cancer journey and what we could have gotten out of CSC had we known about the resources at that time in our lives. So that's kind of some of the things that fuel me in my position right now. So although it technically on paper, I've only been back for about a year, it feels like I've been with this organization for a lifetime. So, yeah. And how about yourselves? How did you get affiliated with SSL?
Say it again, please.
How did you get affiliated with your organization?
Well, I worked for the WLW television for 20 some years. And during those 20 some years, I did the Ruth Lyons and Bob Braun shows. And so Elsa was very much a part of those shows. And so we go back a long way, and not only in our work relationship, but also friendship also. So.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That's deep Cincinnati history.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
We're part of a great history of Cincinnati. There aren't many of us left. As a matter of fact.
You know, I have found that some of the organizations here locally in our community, I read an article a few years back because I'm a bit of a philanthropy nerd. It's why I love organizations like Magnify Giving that are amplifying that impact and creating another generation of philanthropists. Is that Cincinnati at one point had the highest number of nonprofits per capita, which I found that so intriguing because as a mid-tier city like Cincinnati, to know that, you know, we're outbeating the larger cities and the number of nonprofits that we can sustain, I think was just a real reflection of not only the people that started grassroots organizations like this one, but also the corporations and the individuals and families that have garnered wealth over the years that are giving back. We have a very generous community here. Sorry, Jordan.
Dick, wait.
Yeah.
Dick, I think you're the co-host. Do you see anything on your
Okay.
screen that says like Ruth and Andy are trying to get in?
I don't see anything. Let's see.
Because I think they're just trying to get on their phone.
Oh, they're in the waiting room. Yeah.
Hmm? No, what does he hit? Dick, do you see the participants button on the bottom of the,
I just saw that now. Hold on a second.
so if you hit that, it might show Ruth and Andy are waiting, or at least Andy's waiting. I'm not sure if Ruth is. Mm-hmm.
I just hit it.
Do you not see their names there?
Don't see their names. Just see the participants. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess if they're not, yeah, normally you hit participants, it shows that they're waiting, but if it's not, maybe they're not working.
I don't know. Let's see what else I see here.
Yeah, he is.
I see that share screen. Is that, do I hit that?
No, not share screen. There's something that says participants, and you hit participants, it should bring up the list. It should say all of our names, and it should say waiting, Ruth and Andy.
It says here the list is myself, Frank, and Gretchen, and you.
Okay, well, maybe those isn't working. Is hers?
Dick, can you make Jordan a co-host? Are you able to click on him as a participant and then make him a co-host so that he could maybe?
Yeah, so when you see next to my name, there should be like something that maybe says like more or something. If you click on more and then hit make co-host, that should maybe do it.
Let's see. Hold on a second. I see a waiting room.
Yeah.
What
Oh,
says?
yeah.
Oh, wait, waiting room? Yeah, let them in if you see the waiting room.
Okay. Okay, now let's see, there's Ruth.
Uh, hello.
Hi.
I think we're back.
Ruth is back.
I think.
Ruth, you're the host now, so you probably have to let Andy in.
Okay. I don't
Dick
see-
lost host when you came back.
Wow, who made you host? That's weird.
We never know. So I got,
Okay, well, sorry about,
Ruth, let Andy in.
got it. Here he is. Okay, I think we're all back. I would think that Spectrum would be a little bit better.
All's well with the world now.
With the year that we've had, I would think they would have made great advancements with Wi-Fi and we wouldn't be having these problems. But I hear of people say, well, we just switched to Cincinnati Bell because Spectrum was horrible. Other people will say, we just switched to Spectrum because Cincinnati Bell is cool. Just
Yeah, I think there's no winning in that game.
Ah.
We're just all, we're the losers. They're winning. It doesn't matter what company.
You might have observed that they have not asked for my expertise. I'm still finding the off on switch.
Well, if this past year has done anything, it has definitely thrust us into a more digital world, whether we were ready for it or not. So,
well, but I'd have to say Spectrum and Cincinnati Bell were not ready for it.
no, they were not. No, they were not. You're right.
Oh, well.
But
So,
anyway, I appreciate your time. You were, I've been very, very curious to see what you were getting ready to say about Jordan. It froze right when you said his name, and I can't wait to hear the story that you're getting ready to tell.
who, me or him?
Yeah, no,
said-
you, no
said-
pressure.
You were introducing everybody and saying something about everyone, and you said, and Jordan.
And then you cut out. And then I didn't know if you said something and I missed it and didn't know if I was supposed
No,
to say something.
she cut
and then-
out.
But you cut out, so we didn't know what you were gonna say.
Okay, well, what I said was, I said, Andy is my husband, Jordan is my son, and then I said, oh no,
Our
he's
son.
our son. Andy's real big on the our, he's our son.
Well,
So-
well,
I'm real big on that. Okay, let's
Yeah.
get the meeting started.
well, I have appreciated meeting all of you, and I love that it's a family affair. And I was just mentioning to Dick that it's beautiful also to see such seniority in your ranks, both on your board and in your donor base. And I think I was at a Magnify Giving where a board member who had also been a very strong supporter financially had been there, and she stood up and told her story. And it, you know, hearing from people that have been a part of a mission for so long and can speak it so eloquently and have such a personal connection, whether you're friends or from a business connection or whatever the case may be. I love hearing those stories. So thank you for sharing.
Well, Elsa, I mean, I would call this a quasi family foundation because Elsa and my father actually were born next door to each other on Greenup Street in Covington. They
Oh,
lived,
wow.
their parents lived next door to each other. So they actually did grow up together and were lifelong friends to the very end. And so that's our family connection. And because Elsa got married later in life, didn't have any children, and she was an only child, her husband was an only child. So kind of the buck stopped there. Dick, on the other hand, is a longtime co-worker and friend of Elsa's. So, you know, we all have a connection with her. We just don't get people off the street and say, hey, do you want to be a board member?
That's very similar to Cancer Support Community. We were started about 30 years ago from a local woman who was an ovarian cancer survivor, who ultimately passed from a recurrence, unfortunately. But she basically, and I can work on your agenda. That just
Oh,
seems
fine.
like a natural progression to tell you this history of our organization. But she was watching, you're all probably too young. I know Jordan is, but everyone else too. Phil Donahue show. They we're watching the Phil Donahue show one day, and Dr. Benjamin Harold, a gentleman whose wife was undergoing cancer treatment at the time, was on talking about how he felt that the emotional and psychosocial support of cancer care was critically lacking, where we were focused on the body and the medical treatment, obviously, for very many reasons, but the pace on the data and the research and the science and the advocacy and the program delivery on the emotional and the spiritual impact and the mental impact of a cancer journey was dragging compared to the clinical side of research. And so Dr. Harold Benjamin started this organization, again, formerly known as the Wellness Community, and affiliates started springing up throughout the nation. And Lynn Stern, our founder, was one of these. She brought this mission back to Cincinnati. She was so taken with it that she went out to California 2 weeks later, met with Dr. Harold Benjamin, came back, walked off the plane, told her brother, Harry Davidow, who is still a part of our organization and serves on our board, that we're raising $100,000 and we're going to start this affiliate here. And this is what our community needs. They ended up raising over $250,000 within the first year, which was unheard of back then, 3 decades ago. And it was all grassroots. It was friends. It was people who were in the cancer industry or the oncology work that they had connections with. And they just started driving this mission forward. And 30 years later, we serve over 4,000 people annually. We serve not only cancer patients, but their family members, survivors, coworkers, colleagues, friends, children, spouses, because we do see that cancer is a family and a community journey. It's not just the patient that is affected by it. And at times, between the evidence and the research that we have, caregivers actually carry a higher level of stress than the patient themselves and distress. So a lot of our programming is focused around caregivers and children as well. So at the very basic level, our mission is to ensure that no one faces cancer alone, that we empower people through knowledge, that we sustain them through community, and that we help further their wellness through the programming that we provide. And under that programming umbrella and those services include the very core work that we're doing is our group support. So you mentioned Cancer Family Care earlier. We actually collaborate with them and a couple of other local nonprofits that are working in similar spaces, but our organization is unique to our community. We're the only ones doing what we're doing, and we do it for free. So anyone can participate at no cost to them. Now, we all know from being in our industry that there are definite costs to the programming. We carry a very hefty budget of close to $1 million spent annually on the work that we're providing our community. But as I mentioned, at the very core of it is our group support. So we have support groups for caregivers, for cancer patients based on their diagnosis. We found that with our breast cancer support groups, we actually had to separate out stage 4 because what they were dealing with emotionally and mentally was very different from a breast cancer patient in the middle of stage 1, and the things that they're grappling with and the way that those two folks might interact in a group support setting. So we vet what our community needs and we try and provide it. But the really cool thing about Cancer Support Community is that everything is based in data and science. And as we've seen over the past couple of years, that's so important when we're talking about the types of programming that we're putting together, the communities that we're trying to break into and break down barriers, and also the underserved and underprivileged areas of our work. Alongside of group support, another pillar of service are healthy lifestyles. So we offer free yoga classes and Zumba, cooking for wellness, all sorts of healthy lifestyle classes and programs. The third pillar is education. We empower our participants through knowledge, whether it's busting myths on clinical trials. Oh no, we lost him again. Busting myths on clinical trials, or whether it is bringing in a prostate cancer speaker to talk directly about new treatment options or things like that, where we're just bringing education to our participants. Another pillar of service that we have is our individual support. So where Cancer Family Care actually is all individual one-on-one support, ours is group. However, we do individual distress screening. So we're very focused on making sure that we're not duplicating other nonprofit or another service providers' efforts. So where Cancer Family Care does one-on-one individual therapy, we do not. They do not do group support, so they refer to us in that capacity. So we try and work in tandem with them quite a bit. In fact, one of the programs that we put on throughout the year in our family and children's space is in collaboration with them. And it's basically a family program on how to talk about cancer, whether it's your own immediate family, whether it's a grandparent, whether it's a classmate of your child, whatever the case may be. And that program actually breaks out parents separately and children separately. And we talk with those facilitators, and they're all master level social workers or above. And they're leading discussions, and then the group comes back together to talk more. So in those instances, we're able to collaborate with nonprofits and utilize our resources and steward our financial gifts as well as we can by collaborating and working with other folks that are in that same space. I'm going to pause here for a second because I don't want to carry on too long if you don't want me to.
Yeah, I might, yeah, I know Ruth would be mad if we continue, unless
Got
they're
too
just
deep.
gonna, we are recording it, but I don't know if we lose the recording because she's host. I just sent them a text asking if they could get on with their phone.
Okay, and if we do need to reschedule, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
totally understand. And I actually can also follow up with a mission video. We have a 2-minute video that talks a little bit about our mission as well. So I'll be happy to follow up with that so that they can
Okay.
get the gist of it.
he's responding to me now. Okay, Dick, it looks like they might be in the waiting room again, is what, I think
Okay.
you're back to being host. You got all the power again, Dick. So,
Yeah, no, waiting room, I've got somebody in the waiting room.
yeah, so let them in. That should be Andy, so. And so it might, there should be something that says admit or let in or allow. There's someone, that's an iPhone, so I don't know who that is. We'll see who it is. It's
Any
the
minute.
suspense.
Hey, right. This is a very suspenseful call.
Believe it or not, this is the first time we've had like bad technical difficulties in like a year.
I gotta
Yeah.
be honest, I completely can believe it with my luck, the way things have been going over the recent month. It has been quite a roller coaster, so I'm not shocked to hear that I have something to do with.
What'd you say, Dick? Sorry?
I'm just looking, I'm going,
Yeah, you let the one in, but it's still connecting, so I don't know if they're having connection issues at their house, and so that's why you can't even connect the
looks like
iPhone
you're trying,
audio.
it looks like
Oh.
they're trying to, there's Andy.
There's one. Is Ruth trying
Okay,
to get
I'm
in?
on my phone. Yeah, I'm in now. Who let
Why
me
don't you
in?
guys-
I'll
I
just tell mom to go on her phone, but the internet went back on, but she still can't get in, but spazzing out.
Why don't you guys just sit together?
Hang on.
Well, I can sit here right now, but she can get on her phone.
There she is.
But the internet is actually on again, but it's, you can do both. You can still try to get back on and hold your phone away if we get on.
All right, let me try. Oh, God. Just is it
What?
recording still?
Yeah, we've been recording.
Are you
I just don't know if we're gonna, how the recording's gonna look at the end, if when it switches host, if it like breaks it up or,
Oh,
I don't
well,
know.
Dick let me in.
Somebody let mom in.
You know, Jordan, I think what it does is it records it at a cloud level and then
Okay.
it actually asks where you want to save it maybe, or
Okay.
something like that at the
Well, I
end.
can't see anything.
But,
We'll tell them to let you in.
Well, I'm there, but I
No,
don't see.
and you guys don't need to watch the recording. We've been bad mouthing you the whole time, so.
Jeez, oh, Kate.
Dick, I
I-
think you need to let Ruth in. I think she's trying to get in.
Ugh.
Yeah, she's on her phone trying to
All
get
right,
in.
goodbye.
we
Keep
go.
going.
We want
Otherwise
to get
it'll.
feedback.
Get
We're gonna get
back.
feedback in a
Go.
second.
I know, but
Run
you
out
might
of
be
the
able to get
room.
on here and still keep that in case it goes out again. Jesus. Kate.
No, I'm not. I just- Okay,
I think.
There she is. She's there.
well, I have to say it's not.
I will tell you that this, I'm going to bypass my physical therapy today because this was all of the abdominal workout I needed from all the giggles. I had emergency unexpected surgery to take my gallbladder out, which apparently is like the most common surgery at Bethesda North for Tri-Health, if anybody's wondering. But so my my stomach is a little bit tender, but you're making me laugh a lot, so I'm getting a good workout.
Sorry.
Oh, wow.
No, I've enjoyed the conversation so far. It's been really great. With a few technical difficulties, it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just digging into our mission and the pillars of service, but I can do whatever.
Uh-oh.
Andy, you're gonna have to mute one of those or both.
I
of
am.
them.
I just
Okay.
got back on my,
Yeah, well, take one off.
Yeah, just leave your
So
phone
you
down.
let me know where you'd like me to pick up, or if you have a specific question that you'd like to direct to me right now.
Could you zero in a little bit on the differences between you and Cancer Family Care? We've supported their children's in-school sessions,
Mhm.
counseling sessions.
Yes. So the difference between the two of us, sorry, my alarm's going off on my phone. I just want to stop it. We actually, we were just touching on this, actually. We collaborate quite a bit with Cancer Family Care. Cancer Support Community, CSC, my organization, is very unique in its model where we offer group support and a number of other, I mean, in a regular year, we're doing 250 programs a month. Now, because of COVID and pivoting to a virtual platform, that's a little bit different, obviously. However, the space that we're working in is very unique. There's no one else doing what we're doing in our local community. Cancer Family Care does individual one-on-one counseling, like the group, the support program that you help fund in schools.
Mhm.
Cancer Support Community is all about the community, creating a community around someone with a cancer diagnosis or dealing with a loved one with a diagnosis. And so at the very heartbeat of our organization is our group support. So we do not do individual therapy or counseling. We'll do decisional counseling where we'll talk through, and our social workers are trained to ask a series of different questions, and we're not giving medical advice, but we're really helping somebody maybe peel back the worry and the stress and the anxiety from a cancer diagnosis or a decision that they have to make, so that we can help drill down into some of their major questions that they can then take back to their medical providers. So where Cancer Family Care is doing one-on-one, we're group, and we don't necessarily cross over. We refer to them quite a bit and they refer to us. And we also collaborate on an annual basis with a program targeted specifically for family and children dealing with cancer diagnosis, and how to talk to each other, how to talk individually as parents and individually as children, and then bringing them back together. And we run that with Cancer Family Care. In fact, we're getting ready to do one this month, I believe. And we're actually doing it out of our new St. E office in the Integrated Cancer Center there in Edgewood.
Mhm.
So we have a great relationship with a lot of hospital partners. I'll touch on this just briefly because, as I mentioned to the other members of the group while you were off, one of our main focuses as an organization is to make sure that we are stewarding our donors' dollars as effectively and efficiently as possible and utilizing all of our resources. So we collaborate quite a bit. Right now, we're collaborating with the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center to build up our diversity and inclusion efforts and to make certain that we're reaching underserved or underprivileged areas in certain communities that we don't typically serve. A lot of that is about bringing access of program into those communities and collaborating with trusted community partners already, like the Hamilton County Action Agency or Healthcare Connection or people that are already in that space. And so we're constantly doing that with other nonprofits and looking for ways to build the capacity that we need in our organization to reach more people and to be able to do more with the current resources that we have. I think every organization is trying to figure out ways to do that, both funder and, both a grantor and grantee. But that's the main difference with Cancer Family Care. We work alongside of their social workers quite a bit. Our executive director and program directors are very tight. We don't necessarily collaborate on the development side of things, except for areas where we're applying for one funder for two fundees for a grant, a collaborative grant. But for the most part, we work in tandem with them. And, at the very basic level, what we're trying to do, as I mentioned, is simply create community around families and individuals affected by cancer. So the really beautiful thing is that our programming is open to spouses and caregivers and children and colleagues and friends and nurse navigators and anybody working in the cancer space, anyone with a loved one who has been touched by cancer, which my assumption would be if I were to poll everyone on my street, would be everyone on my street in some way. Unfortunately, that's just the world we're living in right now. So one of the analogies that I'll mention, because I think this is a really great way of getting kind of a visual impact of an abstract mission, this emotional and psychosocial support, is that if you can imagine yourself out in the middle of an ocean in a rowboat in the middle of a storm, and how afraid and how distressed, how anxious, depressed, fearful, all of those things that you feel. If you put one person in that boat, imagine how that load lightens, how that you create a sense of common journey, collective wisdom, friendship, support. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're just trying to put more people in everyone's boat and allow people to not only get from our services, but also give, because there's so much collective wisdom in our experiences that when you're sitting in a support group and you're talking about how you're in the middle of chemo right now and your favorite foods don't taste the same, and somebody says, have you tried eating with a plastic fork instead of a metal one because the metal tastes different when you're in the middle of chemotherapy? It's just these little moments that can really impact a person's life. And so the outcomes that we look for in our mission are increased, obviously increased happiness. We're always looking to change lives and make people happier, but a decrease in anxiety, that they feel like our programs helped enhance the quality of life. They have better communication with their medical providers. They have strengthened recovery and quicker recovery. They have less recurrence or emergency room visits. And so the impact of what we're doing trickles from not only that individual's emotional well-being, but also all of their family members. It's a free service, which then impacts their generational financial ability. And also at the end of the day, it's impacting insurance companies with the number of claims, or companies that have to put out money for trips to the ER for stress levels, or whatever the case may be. So although we look like a very small entity doing this one small piece of critical integrated cancer care, the ripple effect of it really is community-wide.
Where do you, I know you have your main office down the street from us on Cooper Road in
Mhm.
Blue Ash, but where do you have your sessions with people?
So I'm glad that you asked. Pre-COVID, we were hosting in-person sessions at our Blue Ash building, which is about 10,000 square feet. We own that space and there are multiple rooms there. So we do educational sessions, healthy lifestyle classes, group support, family and cooking wellness in our demo kitchen. It's a beautiful space. I look forward to bringing any of you in when you'd like to join me in person. So we have Blue Ash. We have our Northern Kentucky office, which we were just recently invited. We've been working with St. E's over in Northern Kentucky for a number of years, but they just built a new integrated cancer center in Edgewood. We now have office space there and host programs there remotely. When we're in person, we'll be bringing our folks in as well. It's just right off the parking garage. It's a really gorgeous space, and we're also able to live broadcast into the chemo infusion suites so that people can be sitting in an iPad during their chemo round of 3 hours or 6 hours or whatever the case may be, and be able to attend our programs remotely that way. We also work with other community organizations like YMCAs, sometimes local churches, depending. We're not religiously affiliated with anyone, but we do know that churches become a hub of a community in certain areas. So we'll host programs there. We'll take our programming offsite to other rec centers or hospitals like Westchester Atrium, Mercy Anderson, Mercy Western Hills, Christ Hospital, UC. We do a brain tumor support group up there with some of their docs. So we're collaborating at every level that we can, because also those same docs and social workers and patient navigators are the ones referring to us as well. So the more that we can tell them about our mission, or the more that we can bring awareness to the work we're doing, obviously, the more new participants we're going to be seeing on an annual basis. So our number one goal is to break down barriers. So we break down the financial barrier by making this at no cost to our participants. We never solicit our participants because we never want them to feel like they have to give to be able to receive our resources. And then the second barrier is transportation or location, because we know that Cincinnati is a very regional city. Nobody wants to cross the Great Divide, both north and south across the river or across 75. So we're taking our programming out into the community. We're not going to wait for those folks to come find us. We don't want to be the best kept secret in the city. I hate that thought, that there are people going through a cancer journey or diagnosis without knowing what we can do for them. So to answer your question, we'll do programming and we'll take it anywhere we can for anyone that will collaborate with us, to be able to get these resources and services out into the community.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Jordan, I'm going to try to get back into the regular, so go ahead and
Okay.
field a question.
Okay. I don't know who the host is, but whoever the host is. Oh, Dick, you're still the host, so I guess keep an eye out on her. Do you guys do a yearly fundraiser? I asked because you brought up how you Cancer Family Care work somewhat on programming together, but not so much on development. And I always know I'm always just so impressed with how much they raise from their, what is it, the wine? It's
Mhm.
some sort of
Yeah,
event.
it's the
and
wine
they-
tasting.
Yeah, and they raise, I mean, it's successful. I was just curious, do you guys do some sort of annual fundraiser? Obviously 2020 maybe was
Yeah,
canceled, but-
a little bit different this past year, but we do. So we do a number of campaigns and events throughout the year. We are 100% funded through philanthropy, which means that we do not receive any government reimbursement or subsidies, no fee for services. We do not receive United Way funding. All of our funding comes from individual donors, corporations, foundations like yourselves, just literally the generosity of others. So we, and our revenue pie looks a little bit different than some organizations. So to give you an example, probably half of the revenue that we receive is through individuals, whether those are one-time gifts, recurring gifts, major gifts, whatever the case may be. A small portion of our funding comes from corporate partners, which I think if you look at like a Giving USA pie model, typically it's 5 to 7% is corporate giving to begin with. So it's typically a small number on average when it comes to philanthropy. Even though so many organizations are constantly putting focus on corporate dollars, we really focus a lot of our efforts on stewarding our individual donors to the major gift level and our foundation funders, because we view them as major gift donors as well. And so we're building relationships and stewarding them alongside. So about maybe a quarter of our budget, 20% of our budget is grant funding, I would say. 45 is probably individual. I'm not great at math, but keep with me here. On an average year, we also receive some small headquarter funding, but all the money that we raise annually stays locally. So with organizations like JDRF and a couple of other big national organizations, the dollars that they raise locally go up and then they come back down. Ours stay here, so we're able to, even though we are an affiliate of a national or a global organization, even we are able to, it's a very autonomous relationship, and we're able to apply that funding and create community impact the way that we feel our community needs it the most. So it's a beautiful relationship. So a small sliver comes back from headquarters. Another piece of our pie is Legacy's Upscale Resale in Hyde Park. It's our social enterprise. So it's a consignment store. We deal in upscale home goods and boutique items, furniture, things like that. Basically, this was started about 20 years ago. A group of 12 ladies who were friends with our founder, Lynn Stern. They started working out of someone's garage, selling consigned purses and just their own boutique items. And it is now grown into a 15,000 square foot store in Hyde Park. Their contributions have ranged between 70,000 a year to 200,000 a year, depending on business levels and what they're able to accomplish there. But 100% of the proceeds come back to us. They fall under our 501c3. It's a really interesting business model. We're very focused on diversified revenue streams because I'm sure a lot of organizations who were events heavy felt this in 2020, where all of a sudden, if 80% of your revenue comes in through events and something like this happens, that's just not sustainable. So we want to make sure that any funding that we receive, we work to sustain it as hard as possible. So to answer your question, Jordan, we do have a couple of annual events. In the past, we've hosted a traditional gala. This past year, it was virtual. It was a 30-minute program. Most of the fundraising came from an online auction, sponsorships, and kind of raise the paddle dollars that you would typically have in a live setting. But we basically did all of that fundraising on the front end and then had the 30-minute program as a celebration of our 30th anniversary. Just more of an interactive marketing piece rather than a live fundraising piece. It worked really well. We actually ended up raising close to $60,000 from it, which was, I'll be honest, probably 30,000 more than I was expecting because our demographic of our donor database and just the support that we had for an event like that in the middle of COVID was a little bit light. In years past, we've raised closer to 200, 300,000 in an in-person setting. This year, we actually just contracted with Topgolf to do a golf outing. So we're expecting this to be an annual event for us. If you're not familiar with Topgolf, it's out in Westchester. It's the big giant driving range. It's undercover, so you don't have to worry about weather. It's COVID friendly, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. And I'm excited for the event. I think that we're going to get a lot of traction and a lot of support for it. I would anticipate that to be an annual event. We haven't had a golf outing in years. They're big overhead, big time commitments, a lot of staff resources. And we're a small but mighty team. I have 2 part-time people working on my development team. One is focused on grant writing. And then the remainder of our 10-person staff is all program based because we're all about mission delivery. like every other nonprofit, right?
So I have a question. Do you have any collaboration activities with St. Jude or Dragonfly?
Great question. So we work in slightly different spaces. St. Jude is very research based. I personally donate to St. Jude. I can't get away from those commercials. And as a parent of a cancer survivor, my daughter was 18 months when she was diagnosed, and she, gratefully to God and doctors, is 15 years cancer free this year, which is incredible. So I can't get away from St. Jude's, but I will say that we don't work to raise money for research. We are all for research. We want cancer to be demolished. But until that point, we're here for people.
Well, that's what I meant. Do you get referrals from St. Jude?
Not necessarily St. Jude in our area. We do from Dragonfly, we do from Cincinnati Children's, we do from Cancer Family Care and some of the other organizations that work in our space, from all the other hospitals that we collaborate with. Word of mouth referrals are huge in Cincinnati. When we were in person, our word of mouth referral piece of the pie was much greater. Right now, it's a lot of medical referrals. That lagged when people stopped going into the doctor's offices at the beginning of COVID because nobody was really sure if they should or what they could do. We are picking up the pace on that as well. But Dragonfly specifically, we have worked to collaborate to give them our program information to make sure that they're able to participate. We do a community event every summer, typically around Cancer Survivor Day in June. This year, we're pushing it off to the fall so we can try and be in person. But we'll invite Dragonfly and Cancer Family Care organizations like that to come and set up a table and share their resources, because we really want to be like the center of cancer resources for people. Because right now, you deal with a cancer diagnosis, you get folders of information, bags of papers and resources, email upon email. And it can be really overwhelming to even deal with a diagnosis, let alone figure out how to find the support that you need. So that's really a lot of our focus when we work with Dragonfly and organizations like that is not only collaborating in a program space, but also primarily in a referral space.
Do you get any money from any of the cancer? I served on the Cancer Society here in Northern Kentucky for a number of years and did their gala. But do you get any money from any of those organizations in the area? That does any of that money come to you?
No, we actually do not receive money from ACS or other organizations like that. We have in the past from Komen and fundraising organizations that then grant money back. We have been able to talk about ACS's services when they were doing transportation for cancer patients to get them where they needed to be. We work with the Karen Wellington Foundation in providing their information to our participants who maybe are struggling through something, or Heartstone is another foundation that actually grants money to folks who have critical emergency expenses, medical expenses. So in the areas that we don't work, like providing financial services or research money or things like that, we actually refer out to the other people who work in that space. We try and stay in our lane, specifically because we know how easy it is to drift and start duplicating efforts. And then we're pulling funder money away from that, or we're double dipping into relationships or work. And so where we have organizations like ACS or Komen or the ProScan Foundation, things like that, we'll do more of marketing or community outreach collaboration with them, if that answers your question.
Yeah.
We have received funding from a number of nonprofits that work in the cancer space that do grant money for research, like the Patty Brisbane Foundation, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure what I don't remember ever seeing any of the money go your way when I was involved. But
yeah, we don't. It typically doesn't align. The missions. I try not to force a square peg in a round hole when it comes to grant alignment and funding. Because, you know, I want to respect our funders' alignments and missions and focus, but then also want to make sure that even from a very basic awareness standpoint, know what we do and what's there. But it, you know, it's interesting because a lot of those organizations have had like a lot of turnover. It's hard sometimes to keep relationships going with some of those larger, especially national organizations.
How will the money that you get from our foundation be used in your particular situation?
I'm glad you asked. Thanks, Dick. We actually are focusing these funds, should we receive them, on our Kid Club support group, which is a monthly support group that we host for children affected by cancer. Alongside of that is a quarterly parent orientation. So we recognize that the way that we're talking with our children about a cancer diagnosis and what it means to them is very different than the way that we talk to their parents. We know that their parents need resources and an understanding of how to answer questions and, you know, books, visuals to provide to their children. But really, it's creating a safe space around these kids and allowing them to come together and see, again, putting more kids in their boat is what it's about. So specifically that program, and were we to receive funding, we would be able to utilize, if you were okay with it from a publicity standpoint, putting your logo on the materials and the flyer and the website at the bottom of our emails when we're sending out. We're launching this program this year, and we've already got great traction. One of the things that we found when we had to pivot to virtual is everybody hated it, but you know what? We started increasing our support group programming numbers because we realized how many people either physically couldn't make the trip into person, or maybe just from a vulnerability standpoint didn't feel comfortable with it. And so our core support groups, our friends and family group for our caregivers, and then also our patients living with cancer or people living with cancer, our core groups, increased in virtual participation by 50% right at the onset of COVID, which we thought was incredible. Now, some of those have trickled off. We all have Zoom fatigue. We all have more things happening in our lives as the world reopens, things like that. However, we found that there has been a significant gap in our group support for our kids and family programming. And this is one of the areas where we are dedicated to pushing forward. So that is one group, along with the quarterly parent orientation. And then I wanted to touch on one other program that we also will be utilizing it for, is what we call our therapeutic arts program. So one of the key areas in the way that we communicate with our children about cancer is through therapeutic arts. And I think that you'll find, if you talk with other folks working in the mental health space, when they talk about children occupying them with something else while you're having those conversations, using visuals to try and get them to open up and show you what they're trying to say. I have 4 kids, and even my set from 7 to 17, and they still can't figure out how to tell me what's wrong inside their head. So using a therapeutic arts program is really important in those cases. And so those 3 things working in tandem and really impacting the lives of not only the local children here, but also their parents, will be serving folks from not only the greater Cincinnati area, but Northern Kentucky for these groups as well. And we're putting a lot of focus on reaching into Northern Kentucky and some of the more rural areas of Kentucky as well, since we do have such a strong virtual platform right now. Because as we look at numbers, the really sad state is Ohio and Kentucky. And Dick, you may know this because ACS puts out that amazing report every year, that Ohio and Kentucky continue to stay in the top 10 to 12 states annually that grow in cancer diagnosis. It's just the sheer numbers, and there's need there. So we're going to continue to really work hard to do that. And, one thing that I do want to touch on, and I want to allow more questions, obviously, because I know we're tight on time. But one thing that I want to make sure is understood is, at a headquarter level, our organization is three-pronged. One is advocacy. So we're working in Washington, DC, our headquarter office, and working with lobbyists to make sure that when things are going through like the CARES Act, that cancer patients are thought of during the vaccine rollout and the money that's spent for helping provide support during these economic times. Another leg of our support at a headquarter levels is obviously program delivery and helping create some of the structure behind the programs of what we're doing. But the most important piece is the research and training institute. Our headquarters now, that's not funded by us locally, that's funded at a headquarter level, but all of the work that they're doing, all the evidence-based research and programs that they're putting together and saying, if you provide a monthly support group for these patients, these are the outcomes that we are anticipating. That's done at a national level, and it is all based in evidence. And I think, you know, we find that as we move forward within the mental health world, the more evidence and data and numbers that you can provide, the greater impact you're giving your donors. So we're working on our 2020 impact report right now. I'd be happy to share a 19 copy if you don't already have that submitted. I believe that we did, but you know, I could talk about our work all day. I obviously am personally and professionally passionate about it, but I definitely want to allow for any additional questions because your questions have been very thoughtful.
I have two other questions, so let me throw both of them out so I don't forget. Number one is, I know you have space in various hospitals,
Mhm.
but do the hospital foundations donate to your organization, or is it strictly an in-kind thing where they give you the space?
Mhm.
That's my first question. The second
Okay.
question is a little smaller. Do you make use of therapy dogs, service dogs?
Okay, great. To answer your first question, with regards to hospital partnerships, the space that we are provided is in kind, so that's fantastic. We used to receive office space through the generosity of Bill Butler over in Northern Kentucky. If you're part of that area, you know that name.
Mhm.
The space that we now receive through St. E's, we also we grew our St. Elizabeth relationship through Bill Butler and his family foundation and the Horizon Community Fund, which we also receive funding from. So the in-kind is a beautiful gift, and we're so grateful for it. They also, at a marketing level or a foundation level, do support us financially. St. Elizabeth was a sponsor of our virtual event last year. We have also received corporate funding, or, you know, however the hospitals do it, whether it's through their marketing department or their foundation. We've received funding, or even from a grant like Cincinnati Children's through their corporate relations department. St. E, Cincinnati Children's, we've received event sponsorship from UC Health. We used to have a very strong relationship with Mercy, and they were in a very high tier level sponsor of our annual traditional gala. Because, and you probably understand this as a foundation that has been established for so long, when you have board members that are creating personal relationships and quid pro quo types, where they're not mission oriented relationships, but they're more individual. When those folks pass or step away from the organization for whatever reason, at time those relationships can go with them. And then also at the hospital level, there is such a high turnover at times at the executive level. Sometimes we just simply lose those relationships. So we are working to get those back, specifically in Mercy. And so they've been an event sponsor of ours. So a lot of the local hospitals have been as well.
How about Tri-Health Bethesda?
Tri-Health, yes. Bethesda, not specifically as an individual entity, but Tri-Health, yes. Mhm.
Okay, therapy dogs.
Therapy dogs, yes. Thank you. We have had therapy dogs actually come to our community events. So for instance, our Backyard Bash, which will be held this September, is kind of, we'll invite all of our community partners, like I said, to set up a table. One year we had a pony come. And by pony, I mean literally the tallest pony I've ever seen. It was like an inch short from a horse. So when they brought this pony to our backyard and it showed up as like this Clydesdale looking thing, I thought, oh my gosh, but the kids loved it. We've had therapy dogs come to events like that where families and kids can interact. We've also done things like puppy yoga and brought therapy dogs into the building for specific programs. So yeah, we are open to a lot of interesting different types of therapy uses and collaborative efforts, because what I have found, and I find this in our church between our two different pastors, is the message that I receive from one pastor is very different than the message that I receive from the other one. And I have my preferences and my favorites on how I receive that information. People with support are the same way. I don't know that my father, during my daughter's cancer diagnosis, he was her grandfather and it was his first grandchild, and he had no idea what to do with himself or how to help. I don't think that he would have sat down in a group support and shared his feelings, but I think he probably would have come to a bourbon tasting or a cooking for wellness or a poker night or some sort of social activity and gotten some support that way. So everybody receives it just in a different way. And that's why our menu of programming is so comprehensive. It's not because we want to waste dollars, it's because we know that these programs are impactful and that everybody is using them in a different way. So to answer your question, yes. And if you have any connections, or if you have your own therapy dog, or you would like us to do more in that space, please let me know, because I would love to connect you with our program team.
Okay, I have an
Yeah,
idea.
for sure. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do you have any questions for us?
Oh gosh, no. I've since my first I know that you have a really strong relationship with Magnify Giving. I love Roger Grine. He is a good friend of mine. Um, the organization that I left CSC for, the foundation served Twin Lakes, which is where Roger lives right now.
Mhm.
Um, and and so I look at some of the strong relationships that he's had in our community and how much it means to see when he's collaborated with people for such a long time, because I look at him as kind of this epitome of philanthropist. Um, and so I think that seeing who you fund and who you've partnered with really gives me an idea of who you are as an organization, how long you've been involved in the organization and things like that. I would simply ask, um, what do you see as a successful programming partner? Do you have a success story or an example that you can give me of something that you thought was I look at our grant funders as partners, not don't. I mean, yes, you are definitely donors, but I look at it as how also I can help your organization, because if we're helping you, you're helping us. And I'm a very community centric fundraiser, where it's like, if our industry and our community is thriving, my nonprofit will thrive. And so looking at it from kind of a little bit of a higher level, I'm curious to hear, if you have a great example of a project that has really inspired your organization or been kind of an ideal example of what you see as a funder fundee type of relationship. Did I
Sure.
stump you?
A little bit. Do you have any ideas, Jordan?
I'm trying to think quickly off the top of my head. I mean, the one that I thinking of right now is maybe with the Wave Foundation, and kind of we took, I don't want to say we took a chance because they were a well-established organization, but we bought them a vehicle. Are you familiar with the Wave Foundation?
Is that through the aquarium?
Yeah, it's the like the
Yeah.
nonprofit arm
Yeah.
of the aquarium, and they deliver programming across the
Mhm.
city in a couple different ways of doing it. But when we first were involved with them in 2015, they wanted to do a mobile vehicle to carry to take the animals from the aquarium out to the school,
Mhm.
and they were just wanted to get the program started, and so we ultimately decided to fund the program and purchase them a large van, and then like an aquarium tank to carry the sharks, the rays, and the
Mhm.
squids and whatever. And over the past 5 years, seeing the way that program has grown and almost become self-sufficient, and then also serving as a national model across the country for
Mhm.
other aquariums in the nation to kind of follow in the footsteps of what they were doing, I would say is a pretty good success stories that our initial investment of buying of purchasing the vehicle and the stuff needed for it, and then them kind of taking it and running with it, and then see
Mhm.
what's grown now, I think is um pretty awesome, I think. And granted, not every
Absolutely.
program can quite have the growth. I mean, a little bit's because of their aquarium, and then and the fact that they can kind of keep growing and stepping up and being national. Not everything maybe falls within that realm, but I think that's the one that
I
I'm
love
thinking
that.
at the top of my head.
Well, then the partnership part of that is that, like Jordan said, we started that back in 2015 with a van and a, the Shark Tank.
Mhm.
But then when that was successful, then we went on and did another van and another tank. And then we've done other things in the transporting the programs to the schools. That's our, as you would say, that's our lane
Mhm.
in terms of the programming, whereas other larger foundations will take care of the funds for scholarships for schools that can't afford the programs.
Mhm.
And we don't go there. We are the transportation specialist or whatever in
Mhm.
terms of putting the equipment together for the program. So
Yeah, you're the
it's an
vehicle.
ongoing thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, literally and figuratively, the vehicle for delivery of those programs. Love
right.
it. Yeah.
And he, Scott at the Wave Foundation has kept us really in the loop in terms of how, and they work with, I'll call him a statistician at Thomas More in terms of uh, quantifying their outcomes in Cincinnati Public Schools and some other partners that they have. So we really appreciate his scientific approach to the outcome tracking. Um, and that really does a lot for exponentially propelling his program throughout the region. I guess another one that I would throw out that is a successful partnership would be Ohio Valley Voices, teaching children who are
Love them.
deaf to speak and hear. So I really like staying up to date with their advances. And, I always say that their outcomes are the successful kids. Well, they're all successful, but they're very outgoing and personable. And they're doing things that had they not had the gift of hearing and speech would not be doing. They're in medical school, they're in
Yeah.
audiology school. So to me, that organization has fantastic outcomes in
Mhm.
terms of the children that they produce and what the
Right.
kids can produce with those
Right.
efforts.
Yeah, the overhead numbers that they're producing are not huge. It's not
No.
thousands of kids, but you're right. The impact of that one moment for them and putting them on that path is life changing and generationally life changing too, I would guess as well for them once they, have their own families and things. I've worked with them. I know a number of their volunteers. There are a lot of Twin Lakes residents over here in Montgomery that are affiliated with them. And so
Right.
I had a chance to go over and spend some time there with them as well, and go to their fashion show. And so I love those examples because I think that, it's interesting because I think everybody just wants to do as much as they can with the dollars that they have and really make as much impact as possible. And that's why we're really clear about, finding creative ways to deliver our programming. But there was an affiliate recently within our network that started serving people outside of the cancer experience because everybody through COVID and their mental health state could use a little bit of help, right? Everything that everybody was experiencing through COVID, the isolation, the loneliness, the depression, the anxiety, all of those things. Our cancer patients and their families are dealing with that on a daily basis tenfold. So going through a pandemic is scary, but going through a pandemic with a cancer diagnosis is terrifying. One of our affiliates was kind of toying with this idea of opening their services to everyone in the community. And we get that. We know that there are people outside of a cancer diagnosis that need mental health support, right? But there are other organizations doing that work. And so we talked about it internally as a leadership group too, and thinking, is this something that we want to go down this path to be supporting our own local community right now in a triage effort? But we had to stay focused on our mission. And sometimes it's really hard to remember your true north and what that is, and always coming back to that because there is so much need. And I'm surrounded by social workers. I like to say that I have selective empathy, but when they took the strength finders, every single person that I work with, their top three, one of their top three strengths was empathy. Mine was not. But you know, we care so much about our community, just like you do. And we're always trying to find creative ways to serve it, but we want to make sure that we are being responsible both with our resources and our donor dollars. So that's really, I love the piloting project thought of what you did for the WAVE Foundation and how that has then grown and had a ripple effect. We do some of those things too, where we're thinking, okay, if we can incubate this idea locally, that from a headquarters standpoint, imagine the impact that this would have if we were able to trickle this out to 50 other affiliates, right? So looking at not only the short-term needs of our organization, but the long-term impact it would have on our, not only our affiliate network, but also just our communities.
Yeah, the WAVE would be a good program for your child population
Yeah, I
activity.
might have to reach out to them and see if they might want to come out to our backyard bash and
Yeah.
set something up. The kids would love that. The last one we did, we had a juggler from the Cincinnati Circus Company, and he was juggling fire. That was really, I mean, we try, you got to get a little kitschy sometimes to get people in to see what you're all about. But at the same time, we try and create community events because, again, that's just at the very basic what we're doing is trying to, at the end of our mission video, and Ruth, I mentioned this to the group earlier, I think maybe when you were off a call, I have a mission video that I would love to send you. It's 2 minutes long.
Sure.
It kind of just talks about everything we encompass. But it ends with find your community with us, because that's what we're trying to do, and also bring awareness to all of the other great work happening around. So I'll make sure we put that on our list for it. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Any other questions that you have for me?
No, our board meets at the end of this month on April 29th.
Okay.
And we usually like to get back to everybody within a week of the meeting. So there's a cat showed up in that meeting. So the first week of May, we'd begin back to you.
Okay. That sounds great. I appreciate your time and all the giggles. I had such a good time talking to you. I appreciate your thoughtful questions and the dialogue. I would encourage, if if you do ever cross paths or yourselves are impacted by cancer, to please consider taking a look at our program calendar and sharing that with others. At the very least, I appreciate your time for that and bringing awareness to the organization, but I hope that we can work together in the future.
Great. Thanks for taking time this
Yeah,
morning to
thank
meet with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was great meeting all of
Very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great meeting you. Really.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a
God
great
bless.
day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Thanks.